You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day. I was down with an illusion, like a sparrow with broken wings. But now I shine with your reflection on me. I'm getting back up on my feet. That you showed up was written in my palm. You are a statement, explode like a bomb. I get to push myself to victory. You make me winner.
Welcome to the Producers Panel. I'm Sarah McCourt, a white woman with long dark hair wearing a blue top and a pair of glasses. I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce to you some of the wonderful producers that I've been working with to put this festival together. We're a group of producers at various stages in our careers who 6 months ago embarked on a journey together on the Northcote Futures Producers Programme led by Helen Bovey. Whilst our producers introduce themselves and tell us a bit about their work, I'd like to invite those of you watching us tonight to type your questions for us into the YouTube chat box, and we'll make sure that we answer them during this evening. So, Matt, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I certainly will. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, my name is Matt Farley. I am a freelance producer and theatre maker based in the Tean Valley, not too far outside of Exeter. For the festival, I worked as part of the technical logistics team, putting together everything that you're seeing now on live stream and all of the elements involved in putting the shows out on the internet. So that's been a great deal of fun for me. I am a white male with short dark hair, sat in a large black chair with a yellow background. Yeah, that's me.
And Louisa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Louisa. I'm a white woman, medium brown hair with a whitish background, wearing a black top. And yeah, basically, so I graduated in 2016 from Exeter Uni, the Cornwall campus, in a degree with nothing to do with theatre or producing at all. And yeah, since then, I've moved to the Plymouth area in about 2017. And I've worked in quite a lot of front of house at a few theatres in Plymouth. And when I wasn't working, I pretty much got myself into any courses that I could find. So the one which really got me into the idea of producing was one which used to be run by the Barbican Theatre called Arts Force. And it was all about arts management and that sort of thing. And yeah, that kind of led me on to the next few courses that I then looked at. So in 2019, I did a stand-up comedy course in Brighton, and that got me really interested in producing comedy shows. So I produced my first comedy show in 2020, which was called the Southwest Comedy Showcase, and it was part of the Plymouth Fringe Festival. And yeah, that was really fun. And all of those experiences basically led me to applying to this programme, the Exeter Futures Producers Programme. And yeah, now I'm here on this producers panel with all these amazing people.
Thanks, Louisa. And Grace, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Grace. I am a white woman with long brown hair, a red top and a white background. I originally studied acting and I graduated from drama school in 2019. And since then, I've come back to Exeter and I applied for the producers programme because I was really interested in the mix of creativity and business and project management and getting a project off the ground. I've been doing the marketing for the festival. It's been very busy. And I'm especially interested in touring theatre and community engagement.
Thanks, Grace. And just before we start, my background, I started off as a performer and then taught for many years in further education, during which time I was directing lots of shows, and there was an element of producing within that, which I really enjoyed. And I did a distance learning postgraduate diploma at Rose Bruford, which had a module in it called Theatre Policy and Management, which I got really interested in. And then I decided to go back into performing. And whilst I was doing my PhD at Exeter University, I set up a theatre company, Restless Theatre, CIC, and learnt an awful lot through doing that. And so when I saw this program, I thought, I wonder if I can take that further. And now I'm really interested in starting to work freelance as a producer, and it's given me a lot of confidence with that. Okay, so Matt, I just want to turn to you. Now you and Greg, who is currently running this stream, which is why he's not on this panel, thank you, Greg, were responsible for the logistics of the festival. What impact did producing the festival online have on your role?
Oh, yeah, good, quick shout out to Greg. Thank you very much for running the stream this evening, and for doing a great job all week as well. Running the festival online, I think because we were always planning on the festival being online, it was always going to be a digital event. But I think one of the largest kind of most interesting points about it for me is that I've never worked in a digital space like this before on this scale. And so usually when on a logistics side, you might be working with things like sourcing equipment, technical or otherwise, for a performance to go ahead. This was more based on getting it out on the internet, as I said. So kind of learning how to live stream, which is something that not either myself or Greg had done before. And we had a lot of very helpful kind of advice from Laura at the Northcote and Ellie as well, kind of teaching us how to do all this and supporting us through it. But it's kind of been a big old learning curve for the two of us, learning how to do all of this online and how that online space works and how it's different to in person as well, which is quite a big thing for us to do. Yeah. I have a question actually. Can I ask that one?
Yes.
So I've done a lot of working with yourself, Sarah, and with Greg, but we've also, as a festival team, also encompasses marketing as well, which I know that Grace and Christina, who's not here this evening, have done an awful lot of work on. So Grace, I kind of wanted to ask you what your experience has been of doing marketing a festival from your home, and working with Christina, and were there any like major challenges with that?
Yeah, so marketing was Christina and I. Christina is currently being wonderful in the Forest of Dean, doing some acting there, so can't be with us tonight, but she has been wonderful. Producing it from your home is really weird because it seems like such a huge thing to us, and we are living in this world on the computer of sharing it on social media and looking at images, and then you step outside your front door and it's kind of like it doesn't exist. So you don't have that experience of going to meetings and traveling to see different people and pulling it together like that. I was also very surprised. I was probably a little naive about how much work there was going to be for marketing and how much of that would take place before the actual festival. So when we were having Zoom calls in the weeks running up to it, and Christina and I were just knackered, sending emails constantly, trying to get like little words changed or the color of something, really tiny details that actually made it a huge difference to the overall look of the festival. And so that was a bit of a wake-up call doing that. And I think I also felt a huge responsibility that we were working in creating the festival in general. We weren't working one-on-one with an artist. And I really wanted to create the images and the name of the festival as something that everyone was represented by. And so the artists felt like what we were doing was the kind of work that they wanted to create. And it was true and authentic to them. And so that was a lot of pressure to make it right. And I think potentially trying to ask everyone for their opinions was not always the most helpful thing, because everyone had a different view on it, on whether we should be using a colon or whether we should take out a certain word in the title. The name of the festival was all I thought about for about 2 weeks. But luckily we had Helen on hand to give us some really great advice, and told Christina and I basically that if we were really lost in everyone's opinions, to go back to our key messages of the festival, the things that we'd started out with, and see what we felt best represented that, and to always stay true to those original aims and those goals. And that pulled us through in the end.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really that was a really good message that from Helen, especially because like yeah, I remember like the group conversation we had at the time, trying to like
Mhm.
just get it right for the deadline and stuff. And it was,
Oh
yeah,
God.
a little bit stressful, just like, oh, I don't know anymore. I don't know what looks good anymore. Like, so yeah, having that clarity is like, yeah,
Yeah, there were
no.
just so many different versions of what we could have done, so many different shades of purple and so many different fonts. And you think, oh, those are really tiny things, they shouldn't make that much of a difference. But when you're looking at two different logos, you think, oh God, it does. This is the public's first introduction to what this festival is. We need to get this right. And so that felt really important. My boyfriend repeatedly referred to the festival as a place in the sun instead of a place on the map, and that did not help the process. But we got there. We got there, and I think the right decisions were made. It was just a really big learning curve for everything that goes into marketing. It's not just sharing something on Twitter. It's a lot more than that. Louisa, I would like to know about your experience, because you were working with Alice and you were co-producing with some of the artists, which I think is completely different to what we were doing. So what was that like?
Yeah.
Were there any challenges that you guys came across?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting and different to both you and Matt and Sarah's experience, because yeah, you just kind of were responsible for the festival itself, whereas we were working directly with the artists themselves and trying to get like decent shows for the festival, which I'm really glad to say, like all of the ones that I've seen, they're all amazing. So that worked. But yeah, so it was really interesting working with Alice as a co-producer as well, because the other producers who worked with artists, so that's Paul and Liv, they were just working directly with a couple of artists, and they were working independently. So actually I found it really nice and reassuring to have Alice there, because obviously we're not the same person, so we have like different expertise and things that we're strong at. So that was actually really helpful in terms of being able to support the artists we had, because the artists we were supporting, they did quite different shows. So we had Donald with Enos at the beginning of the week, and then Ruth with her dance film and dance panel last night. And then just before this producers panel, we had Long and Short with their 3 short sketches. And yeah, there's just quite a lot of different themes going on in there and everything. So yeah, it was interesting, like navigating that and trying to help them and support them in the best ways. And I think the main way we went about that was just, when we're having a chat with the other producers who are helping artists, I think what really helped was having a set of ideas of ways to support them and discussing that between ourselves before we went into supporting the artists. So yeah, I think a big thing for us was, making sure we're having weekly check-ins with the artists. And what was the other thing? WhatsApp groups. That was a big thing that was like, it actually really helped us further on down the line, because it means that they can kind of contact us directly if they need any help, and it's a bit more immediate and friendly than just sending lots of emails to people, which I've spent a lot of time doing, I feel like. So yeah, that was really interesting. And then I think the whole process of supporting the artists as well, from the beginning, where it was getting the marketing copy sorted, where I was a bit more strong at doing that side of things. And then when we got to the middle of the process, where it was just asking the right questions and trying to help develop the artist piece a bit more, I think that's where Alice particularly came into her own with it, because I think she's got quite a lot of experience with that side of things. And she also works as a stage manager as well. So particularly with Long and Short, she was really helpful in supporting them with like their set and that sort of thing. So yeah, and it was interesting how like, I really like emailing people and logistics and that side of things. So I was quite good at coordinating the dance panel for Ruth and everything. And then for Donald, I think we were quite even on how much support we could have. So like having the weekly check-ins with him, I think were really helpful in just working out where his piece was going and what sort of things he wanted to work on. Just asking the right questions sometimes, like, could make each of the artists think of different things they hadn't originally thought about. So yeah, it was quite a lot of stuff, and being adaptable was, I think, the biggest takeaway I had from it, because everyone's got different support needs, don't they? So yeah, that was the big
I suppose
thing I took away.
you had to balance working with multiple artists. Like
Yeah.
Christina and I really found with the marketing, we kind of had our idea for the overall festival in general, but then we also had lots of the artists emailing things that were so important to them, you know, the way that an image looked, or can you just change this wording, or we don't like the way that is. And you think, oh God, I've got to balance the fact that your piece is the most important thing in the world to you, but also like the overall feel of things. And you guys working with 3 groups of artists, that's quite a lot to kind of split yourselves between.
Yeah, but it was really fun actually just getting to know them and getting to know their pieces as well. And then you kind of develop that rapport with them as well, because like the first meetings, it's obviously going to be a bit awkward at first, because like, oh, I've never met you people, and like this is my like only met you online and stuff. But then it's interesting how like just having those check-ins and stuff, oh, okay, you get a sense of what their show's about. And then that was quite helpful in communicating with like this, like each of you as well, like what their specific needs were as well, and knowing what questions to ask, I think. So yeah, that was really interesting learning to do that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say on that particular bit. So I actually had a question, like, to go back to Sarah, because obviously as I was working with the artists, I wasn't necessarily involved in the running of the festival, and you were like that main overseer of everything. So like, what was that experience like for you, and like what were the challenges with that?
I think one of the biggest challenges was because we were working online, and suddenly you're working with a team of people that you've never met in person, and you've got 5 weeks and there's a festival to put on, and that's quite a scary thing. And at the same time being really aware that everybody's doing this and they're also doing their day job or whatever else, or they've got a course they're doing, or they're doing freelance work as well. So everybody's hours are different. Everybody's got other things going on in their lives, and you're not in an office together. So there's not a point where it's like, oh, morning, how are you? Or, oh, yes, you know, we'll just pop out for coffee. How are you doing? I see you're a little bit tired today. Should we just have a chat and see how it's going? So because you can't see people all the time, is trying to judge where they're at. And so those Zoom meetings were so important to sort of, because that was the one time you'd really get to see people and you could kind of go, are you okay? Is everything running okay? And kind of trusting that it was. I had an email box that was just filling up with emails every day, and it's sort of like some of them you just look at it and it's like, okay, that's just letting me know that that's happening, that's fine, and sort of going, oh yes, that's needed, and trying to balance that with my own freelance work was quite tricky sometimes. Yeah, and I guess that made it particularly difficult at those moments when everybody's doing a great job, but you just want something a little bit extra. And you know that you've got to go into the Zoom meeting, or you've got to send an email that's actually saying to people, I know they're really busy, I know they're really tired, they're doing a fab job and they're working flat out, but we need this one thing, because this one thing is actually going to make a huge difference to the festival. Those moments are really tricky, because you know that that's putting a little bit more pressure on somebody who's already got a lot on their plate, and trying to hold that and support it and work out how you can support them with that but still get that little bit of difference made. That's a really delicate balance. And you know, I mean, wonderful people, they all rose to, they've all given everything they have to get this festival off the ground, and it's been superb. I think the results speak for themselves. I'm going to turn now, because we've got some wonderful questions in the chat, so I'm going to pick a couple of questions out of the chat. We've got one here. What's the lure of producing? So let's go to Matt. What's the lure of producing for you?
Yeah, I knew you were going to come to me, Sarah. There are so many things with producing. I think that one of the biggest things for me personally is the fact that, similar to directing in a way, as a producer, you get to work with everybody on the projects that you're working on, which means that purely from a people standpoint is actually really getting to work with people at different levels, and in any creative project, whether that be in this instance with artists or in a more traditional sense when you might be working with a director and stage managers and anyone doing tech or costume. And it's kind of, you really get to, in those circumstances, but also in this, you really get an impression of seeing the project come together purely because you're dealing with so many people. And I think that's, for me, probably one of the most fascinating things about producing, is kind of having your hand in all the pies and it being okay. Yeah, that would be probably my take on it, but I'm sure other people have just as interesting points.
Yeah, I think well, like you just said, I think you have to have quite a lot of different hats all the time. I find that really interesting. Like, oh, okay, I can kind of, like, just with supporting the artists that I've been able to support this time, it's like, oh, okay, I can put on my know everything about dance hat today, and then comedy hat, and then space, and it was like, oh, cool, this is like a really interesting set of different things. Because when I came into this program, I was like, oh, okay, I just want to do really, it's good that I'm doing like this theatre stuff, but I really like comedy, and that's the thing I wanted to go into. But I think the main thing from this program which has taught me is, like, I'm much more interested in a lot more different things than I was interested in before. And I think that's made me like the role of a producer even more, because you can be all sorts of types of producer. Like, you know, you can be a more creative producer, you know, you can do dance, theatre, comedy, whatever, and you can kind of go anywhere with it, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and with that as well, like, every day is different. You're always dealing with a different thing on a different day, and every project is different as well. So different people, different hats, as you said, Louisa. These kind of, no day is the same. You might have patterns in the way you work, whether it be the build up to a performance or a particular grant application or things like that. But it's yeah, the kind of the difference that you get on the day to day is something that's really, really exciting.
It's that fingers in pies thing, like you say, Matt. It's that opportunity to be involved with so many different areas and bring creativity to all of those things that might initially seem quite like dry. Like, especially for me, I've found in the marketing and the, like, working with the audiences thing, like, there's so many opportunities to think of really cool ways of engaging with your audience. I was desperate for both this festival and our Scratch Night that we should have an ice cream delivery service. And I was so keen to try and make this happen. Fortunately, we couldn't. But, you know, coming up with ideas like that you can spread the word of your show, you can make it a really exciting experience for everyone. Being able to be a producer, you can bring all of that stuff together, you can work across the board and push your creativity into all those areas.
And it translates to all the areas that you think it wouldn't as well, that kind of creativity. I remember we did our first, one of our first sessions we did on budgeting, and you think, oh, this is all going to be spreadsheets, it's all going to be numbers, there's going to be no fun to be had whatsoever. And I remember Helen just saying to us that actually that's one of the most creative things you can do, because when you're budgeting for a project, you're actually choosing who is in the room. And that is a huge creative decision that's made before any rehearsal has started or anything like that. So really, there's creativity in everything.
And the things that you want to spend the money on, like what's really important to you in this, it gives you a chance to mold something from the very beginning of being like, do you know what, set doesn't really matter for this show. That's not what it's about. What it matters is how we work with these people or that people, and it gives you the power to make those decisions.
That's what I love is in
the
a
power.
sense, I think, no, not the power, the shaping. It's shaping that creative space and kind of holding that creative space that allows the creative work to happen, and then being able to kind of bring people together to make it happen is really exciting. And I really enjoy, because I've worked in lots of different roles in theatre, so like being able to bring a bit of technical knowledge, being able to bring a bit of marketing knowledge, and a bit of acting and directing knowledge, and all of that side of things is really exciting. And then having the logistics to make it happen, and just holding that space and seeing, I think in a sense it's that empowering others as well, because you kind of map out this space which allows this creative project to happen, and then you do a lot of the small supportive work, and sometimes it's just a little thing here or a little tweak there that just helps everybody to be the best they can and make the project the best it can be. And that's really exciting, seeing it take off and develop. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that's just made me think as well that it's also, there's an element of kind of the ideological as well with producing, in the sense that you get to not choose, but you also get to kind of really be the focal point for what is important with the production, whether that be inclusivity or diversity or accessibility. You kind of, all of those elements of making a performance for an audience, or for specific audiences, or for everybody, is really something that's also has an element of creativity to it, and an element of not just creativity, but sort of this kind of feeling of actually making a difference in a way, making it feel like the work is important. And that's something that's fascinating to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm going to jump in there and link, because that makes a really nice link to something that we chose to do within our festival. Louisa, you wrote the wellbeing policy for the festival, and I wondered what impact do you feel that had on the way in which the festival was run, because that was quite a central part of what we did with this festival and shaping this space.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not going to take credit for writing it all, because it was mostly Alice who like produced it and put it together, and yeah, I just had a look at the editing and that sort of thing. But yeah, it was a really important thing to kind of put in place for the festival, I think, because I think the main takeaways, it was just like a list of things which people should be mindful of during the festival, like for example, setting working hours for yourself so that you're not, responding to emails at like midnight or something ridiculous like that. You stick to whatever hours work for you, and that's, like we said earlier in the conversation, it's different for everyone else, because everyone's got different working patterns. Like, I know I work quite weird shifts, so like evening shifts, and then really early in the morning sometimes, and other people are going to have a 9 to 5. So it's just being aware of those different timetables that people have as well, and making sure that it's okay to say that I can't respond to emails on any days apart from Tuesday and Wednesday, for example. So we definitely thought having a wellbeing policy sent out to people, that's the important thing we want to try and do. And we didn't have one in place for the scratch night. We didn't, I think it was March, April sort of time. So we're really interested to see what sort of difference that having a wellbeing policy for the run up to this festival might have on it. And I think for me personally, it definitely made me more aware of, how many emails I was sending out a day, what time I was sending them out, how clearly they were presented, because I didn't get this perfectly right at the beginning. So, like in the first week when we had like quite a immediate deadline, I probably sent out a bit too many emails. But then I think from like feedback from the general team and stuff, where we all sort of had to think about that, I think I definitely streamlined emails a bit more, and also highlighting key points and that sort of thing. And I think a lot of other people, such as Matt and Grace and Christina, or everyone basically who's sending out the main emails, they took that into consideration as well. And it actually made, because if you're getting quite a lot of emails, it can be quite overwhelming. So making sure that it's just as straightforward as possible is like it sounds like quite a little thing, but it's quite an effective thing to change as well. And then I think, what was the other main thing I was going to talk about with the wellbeing policy? I think having the WhatsApp groups was really helpful, because, and I did mention them a little bit before, but it was really nice to have like check-ins with people and having that immediacy as well. And what me and Alice did with our particular group, and what we're trying to encourage with the other groups as well, was we'd have a weekly roundup of, oh, what was your best moment of the week? What was the positive takeaway from the week? And I found that really helpful just for myself, because it then makes you think about what you're grateful for and everything. And that's something that sometimes when you're busy with trying to organize a festival, for example, that sort of thing often goes to the back burner. You don't really focus on it. So that was something that me and Alice were really passionate about trying to include. And yeah, like apart from that, the main bit which we were trying to do in the wellbeing perspective was partly about access as well. So we've had like chats with Grace and Christina and Matt and Greg for like the marketing and the technical, and just trying to see what little things we can do in the time we had available to us to try and make it as accessible as possible. And yeah, I think we kind of realized like how much work goes into making a festival like truly accessible. So like I think we made some like good little steps and stuff, but I think yeah, it definitely made me appreciate like, oh, okay, yeah, gotta put a lot of work in it to make it successful, and the same for wellbeing as well. So it's like an endless process, I think, of trying to get better at doing it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think the work that you did though to do it gave everyone such a nice feeling while they were working though, because obviously it was stressful. You know, we all had a huge amount of work to do, and I found like balancing my kind of 9 to 5 job with a lot of the other stuff quite difficult at times. But those like regular prompts on WhatsApp from you and Alice about being like, you know, what's a part of your day that was actually really nice today? It either made me think, oh, actually that was a nice part of it, or it made me think, do you know what, I need to sit down and have a cup of tea and create that space for me, because if I can't think of something, then there's probably an issue there. And that was a really like small way of doing something that wasn't like it wasn't intrusive. It wasn't something, you know, we didn't have to sit down and talk about our feelings or how knackered we were. It was just a nice way of just checking in and making sure that we were all okay and we were all taking that time. And I really appreciated that. That worked really well for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I've never actually had like a wellbeing policy for a project that I've worked on before, but it's definitely something I would like to take forward in my own practice, because like so often, not just in the theatre industry, but in work in general, in the workspace, we're told that we have to make sacrifices to get things done, especially in industries where there are strict deadlines or set timeframes for things to happen in. And often to get things done, that sacrifice tends to be people's mental well-being. So just to have those kinds of check-ins that Grace was talking about, or to have a policy that creates a kind of a supportive framework in which we're working, can be a really powerful thing, just to remind ourselves that actually, whilst this is really important and I do really enjoy what I'm doing, I equally enjoy taking myself out and going for a walk for 5 minutes, and those kinds of things that really kind of help you in a mental space to get through it. And it's definitely something that's really helped my practice throughout this project, and hopefully going forward.
And taking a walk is really creative too, because often it helps you to unpack ideas in your head, doesn't it? I was just going to say, Louisa, you mentioned about how much is involved in making a project accessible, and one of the things I know that we talked about a lot was the use of subtitles. And I know that we got subtitles on the artists' films, but we were hoping to get subtitles on all of our YouTube screenings as well. And at the end of the day, we researched lots and lots. I know Matt did a huge amount of work on this. We did a lot of research on ways of making the subtitles work with the stream, and in the end it proved impossible in the amount of time, and sometimes there is a payoff. And actually that's something moving forward, for people that produce all of this technology, could you make it easier for people for these things to link up so that we can much more easily make our work accessible? Because I think there's a real will there for all of us, from all of us, to make work accessible. And when there were enormous barriers between making one piece of technology fit with another piece of technology, becomes insurmountable when you're working to tight deadlines and something has to give. And unfortunately that had to give, but please, if you're involved in developing software out there, make it more accessible for everybody to use and for things to link up together, because it is so important.
Yeah, Google, if you're listening, please help us with this, because we know
I'm
you
sure
can.
they are listening. Where
I'm
else
sure
would
they are
be on
somewhere.
a Saturday night?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
We actually have a couple more questions in the chat if we'd like to ask them, Sarah. I don't know about you. How's that sound?
Yes, go for it, Matt.
Fantastic. We have a question. This is from Donald, actually, from Enos. How do you / would you like to find projects in the Southwest to collaborate on after this program? So about finding projects to work on and people to collaborate with.
Oh, Donald, what a question.
Donald always comes with the good questions.
Was it about like who you'd like to collaborate with, or how you?
Yeah, how do you find people you'd like to collaborate with, or projects you'd like to work on?
Just trying to think. I think for me, for the comedy show that I did for the Plymouth Fringe last year, I found people to collaborate with that from just going to, just by chance I'd heard about open mic which was happening in Plymouth at the Bread and Roses, and then from someone I used to work with at the Theatre Royal, and then I went to one of those and just connected with the host of that. And yeah, after meeting him and having a conversation with him and just saying like, this is what I want to do, I'm really interested in getting involved in like the comedy scene in Plymouth and everything. I think that definitely opened up a lot of doors for me as well. And yeah, it's been interesting getting more involved in that community and just seeing how much stuff's actually going on in Plymouth at the moment. And specifically in terms of comedy and stuff, like at the moment there are comedy walking tours happening all over Plymouth at the moment with 3 amazing comedians. And yeah, it's really interesting, because I don't think that project would have necessarily happened if not for COVID, because it's all outside and it's quite, you don't have to be in a theatre space or a venue to be able to do it, but you can still, get some sort of an income hopefully in the future from it. So it's interesting seeing, so back to the point, I think it's like trying to go and see quite a lot of different things, and then if you like something that someone's doing, trying to connect with them afterwards, if that's possible. I think that's the way I've tried to do it, and also doing lots of courses and applying to, and weirdly, this is the weird one as well, applying to lots of jobs and things and not necessarily getting them. That's then made me slightly more recognizable to certain people in certain theatres, because like I've applied for this 3 times, I haven't got it, but now I know you, so that's interesting. Like, so yeah, it's like sometimes people you want to collaborate with can come out of really weird situations as well, but yeah, that's interesting as well. Like,
I think that's a really good point, Louisa. I just had an interesting situation come up exactly like that out of a job I applied for, and ended up having a phone call with somebody that led on to something else. But it's actually I think it's an interesting point, because I'm a working class artist, and although I've done a PhD, I've kind of gone through the system, and it's been tough. I'm sort of in my later life now, and I think one of the things I've discovered is you can kind of go through systems and go through the education system and things, and there's a whole language involved with networking and with the way that people use language, that if you're from a working class background you don't pick up, because it's just simply not there. And it's like when I'm at home, I talk about things and like it goes right over, my partner and my family, they have no understanding of what I'm trying to do or what I'm talking about. And that's quite difficult, because you don't realize what you're not picking up. And just simple things like invitations, you feel like, oh, I don't want to impose on somebody's time, or I'll just go to them if I've got a problem. I don't go to them because, they've sort of said, oh, come and see, come and have a chat. And you think, oh yeah, I'll go and have a chat if I have a problem, but I don't go and have a chat normally. So there's a lot of intricacies with networking within the arts that if you're a working class artist, it takes an awful long time to develop. And I think it's very hard to be on the other side of that and make those offers to working class artists and help them through. And a lot of us do go through the education system. So a lot of us have now, you know, we're coming out with master's degrees and things like that. So we appear to be quite competent. And yet there's things like with the networking and things, there's little things in the language that we miss. So, but I think networking is hugely important, and building confidence to approach people is something, and particularly building confidence to approach people in buildings. I think that's a really difficult one, because I'll quite happily go to a show and like talk to the artists afterwards, especially if I really like their work. Approaching buildings is a little more daunting, and I think programs like this are really, really great for helping you to gain that confidence and a little bit more of that understanding about they are just people and they are happy to talk to you even if they're busy. So that's quite a big one.
I think that's a really interesting point, Sarah, what you just finished on. Sorry, Matt.
Oh, that's all right.
Talking about people are willing to give you their time. So you think about all the amazing companies that worked with the producers and the artists. There were so many people that were like, oh, if you've got a question, just drop me an email. Or if you want to meet up for a coffee to talk about this, then just send us your, like, I've found since moving to Exeter, there are so many artists who will sit and talk to you for hours, and producers and people in buildings. It's just about having that confidence to start that conversation, which is so difficult. But once you do
it, absolutely.
It's I think the in the Southwest, especially, from what I've learned more so doing this program than anything else, is that actually a lot of people know a lot of people. And I think everybody kind of knows everybody, especially when you're talking about people within buildings and within these kinds of institutions. In that, as you're saying, Grace, it's kind of having that bravery and that willingness to go and approach people, but also listening to, for example, the panel that we had last night with the dance panel, and listening to Naomi at the Phoenix talking about how that there is an effort now in the arts culture and within places like the Phoenix and the Northcote, that people within those buildings are seen as people, so that you can actually know that there is a face or a person you can go and ask. And I think it is opening up a lot more than it used to be. But one of the things with that and networking, especially, because as you say, networking is kind of key, but networking is one of those words that you never really, as you say, Sarah, it's one of those things that you never really understand what it is until you end up doing it. And then even then you don't really know that you're doing it. And I think some of the biggest tips that I can give for networking would be coming along to events like this and asking questions in YouTube chats, or if it's in person, actually being willing to ask a question or catch somebody afterwards. As you say, when we're able to now, going to a show and being able to speak socially distanced with people, to kind of get your face and your name out there a little bit, and just be curious, I think, with things, whether it be performances to go and watch or opportunities like the Futures program to get involved with. Really just kind of being curious and asking those questions, because then you will end up networking without even knowing it.
Yeah. And Zoom has made a huge difference, hasn't it, with networking? Because that's one of if there's been a benefit of lockdown, it's been that we've discovered Zoom and all of these wonderful technologies, that when we live in places like the Southwest, we are all so far apart from each other. It's like if you want to get anywhere, you have to jump on a train or get in a car, so to meet up as artists. And that's one of the things that I hope, when lockdowns and we hopefully when things do eventually get back to normal and we are back in the theatres, that we do keep up these Zoom networking events and these opportunities to share with artists right across the Southwest, so that we can have check-ins, we can meet new people, we can share ideas. Otherwise it's very difficult to go and meet somebody in Penzance when you're stuck in Exeter or in Plymouth. It's that's like a day's work, that. And when you're working freelance, you maybe don't have the time to get down to Penzance and give up a whole day just to go and have a chat with someone, but you can do it on Zoom, and that is amazing. And you can talk to people in America and Australia and all around the world, which is really exciting.
For sure. We've got a couple more questions in the chat that I'll just get to now. So a question from Helen, actually. What has been your festival week highlight?
I think all of the shows happening has been a highlight, because like, I don't know, you always get like quite anxious because of all the stuff you have to do and needs to get done, and like, yeah, it's just really glad. I'm really glad that all of the artists have like produced really cool stuff, and yeah, I think that's my festival highlight. Just like a proud parent almost, like, yeah, you're doing it. Not to sound patronizing, but like, yeah, it's really nice to see, and like it's really nice to see all the good comments everyone's getting as well. So yeah.
I really love the beginning and the end of the sessions. It sounds really odd, because at the beginning there's an excitement and an expectation, and as the artists arrive, what's wonderful is all the artists producers have been with them every night as well. They've arrived as well, which has been really lovely. And so sort of welcoming everybody into the space. And then of course the shows are great, but you're kind of working and thinking during the shows, and just seeing the real talent. I mean, every single show has been different and been exciting in a different way. And then at the end of the night, Greg and Matt and I get to sit and have a little chat after everybody's gone, and go back over the whole evening and talk about what's worked technically, what hasn't worked technically, and just kind of, some nights is like we have to throw each other out, because the temptation is just to sit and enjoy talking about the shows and just going through the notes for the next day. That's really quite a nice part of the day, because it feels really like something has been achieved and the audience has been entertained and the acts have done really well. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. I do like those times at the end of the day. Grace, how about you?
I'm sorry, my Zoom completely crashed, as is the way always. What was the question, Sarah?
It was, I'm trying to find it in the chat.
What's been your festival week highlight?
Oh,
Yeah.
My festival week highlight. Oh, that's tricky. I think in general, I would say watching the pieces that were developed from the scratch, seeing those performed this week, those pieces have come so far, and seeing it all come together with the marketing and with the amazing tech and all of that, really seeing them come to fruition. That when I sat down on Monday night to watch the first one, I got a bit, I felt so proud of us all that we'd actually got there. That would be my one.
Yeah, I'd agree with the relief after Monday night. I might honestly say that I've got a couple of highlights. One, this discussion with you lovely people has been an absolute highlight. I'm also going to cheat slightly and use a highlight from last week, which kind of feels like a show week to me, because we were doing tech and everything like that, which was that actually on Tuesday last week, the artists had their final play space with Scratchworks Theatre Company, who have been helping them and have been fantastic throughout supporting artists through the festival. And a few of us producers actually popped in just for a little bit to go and see what was going on, and actually getting to see not just the artists in their final kind of sharing, really kind of working on their last pieces and having a lovely time, but also getting to see the artists and some other producers that have not been a part of the show week that were also there, and kind of embracing that and getting to see everybody for that last time since we started back in January, and everyone in this little box on my screen, and finally having that kind of that moment to round it all off was a lovely thing.
Yeah, I think, well, just leading on from that, I think that leads into a conversation that a question that I was going to ask, actually. You know, as we've been on this course since January, and you know, it's been like, yeah, quite a few months just on this course, and like we've done like lots of different things along that time. What do you think all of like your biggest learning curves have been during this time? Like what? Yeah. I'll go to Grace first because
Oh,
I'm not like
I think my biggest learning curve has been learning the like real intricacies of the role. I think coming into it, I was like, yeah, you know, if you produce something, you make a poster and you rehearse it and then you do the show, instead of thinking budgets, arts council bids, how do we hire people, how do we have fair pay, who are we going to get to do the marketing for this, who, all of those things that I just don't think I realized how big they were. And now I have a much bigger sense of what the role actually entails. Like my knowledge of that has just tripled. That would be my biggest learning curve, I reckon. Sarah, what about you?
Oh, I think confidence. It's that thing of everything seems so big, and so sometimes things seem unattainable, like funding applications, and you know, so you kind of there's a tendency to kind of go, would you give me a little bit of money if you don't mind, please? I've budgeted it as small as I can, and I can just about manage to do and what Helen has really done in this program is she's taught us to dream big, so that when instead of starting from a place of, if you don't mind, could you give me some money for us, and I'll kind of, I've already compromised my intentions, to actually dream as big as we can and really think about what the project could be, and not be afraid of that, and not be afraid to ask for the resources that you need to put on that really big project. And I think that's really exciting, and that kind of has opened up a whole world and a whole space, in a sense, for being creative within producing, and that I find really exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think for me there are two. One is a practical one, which is, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the learning how to stream, how to edit a live stream, to run this festival in the first place, as Greg is currently doing, and doing a fantastic job, as he has done all week. It's that's a real learning curve, because that's not a skill. I've had very little video editing skills before this, and now I feel like I can do YouTube maybe. So that's been a big practical one. But I think another one is that actually learning just how kind of rich theatre in the Southwest really is, because I think even just within the program itself, I knew very few people. I think I knew one or two other people on the program before this started, and actually learning about all of these people, all these producers and artists just within this program that are out of different parts of the Southwest with different practices, with different experiences, and realizing just how much is out there outside of the sphere that I already knew. It's just kind of blown my world open a little bit, and that's still just the Southwest, which is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I think I had the same thing as you. Like I knew like one or two people on the course and stuff, but yeah, just learning what everyone else is doing is amazing, and just all these people I've never heard of or anything like that. That's been fascinating. But in terms of learning curves, I think like other people have said, like, you know, each week learning, oh, another thing that has to be involved in being a producer. So like going from budgeting to arts council funding, which now that I know what it's like, I just found incredibly daunting. But at least now I'm kind of aware of how long it takes to kind of put forward an application, and you know, what things you have to sign up to get your account approved. Even like that can take a couple of days and stuff. And I think that's been really interesting, just learning the different steps that need to be taken to, you know, be able to get funding and that sort of thing. And then I think the other learning curve I've had, I did have one in mind, but it's gone. Oh well. I think the biggest learning curve has been, because like being a producer has so many different components to it. I think being able to tell, say if I was like looking to go for like a freelancing job, for example, learning how to kind of sell the role of a producer to someone, I'm still learning how to do that, because it's so many different things. And I think the way I'm going to try and do it in the future is like, oh, it's like a overseer, it's like a project manager, I guess in some ways, like if you're taking it in, so like I guess normal jobs, like say standard jobs and stuff would have like project managers, and that's like a quite a normal sort of job role to have, whereas I think producers, it's not necessarily in, like if you're starting up, for example, it's not necessarily in every show, and some people don't realize what a producer does, and yeah, they do a lot of things, so it can be hard to kind of summarize into one or two things. But yeah, I think that's something I'm starting to work on, how to pitch that just for my own personal sense, like, oh, what sort of producer am I, and what can I offer to other people going forward? So
Yeah, for sure. I think we've got time for a couple more questions, and then we'll probably wrap it up. So one that we've actually had sent in previously. Any advice for anyone looking to take part in the producers program in the future? Who wants to start that one?
I will, why not?
Yeah.
I would say go for it, because like the amount of stuff I've learned throughout this process has been amazing. Like I think it's telling that like week on week, you know, you go into different topics, say like, you know, budgeting and then fundraising, for example, or leadership. And then in the following weeks, you mention these things like the rest of the class, and like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about this really important thing, which is relevant to this conversation. And then I realized, oh, that's something I've learned a couple of weeks ago in this class and in this program. And I found that really interesting. Like, oh, this actually really goes deeply into my brain, and it actually all makes sense in the way it's being taught by Helen and the other guest speakers we've had. It's all really important and relevant stuff to working in the arts and everything. And I found that really good to have like a good foundation of how to go about being a producer in the future. So I think that's, the amount of learning opportunities you can get from this program, I think that's a big push for why I'd say like join up to this program and everything.
I would say don't self-select yourself out before you've started. I think there's a tendency sometimes these days, we look at things and we go, oh, I'm not going to bother because I only know a little bit about that, or they won't take I won't have enough experience and everybody else is going to be way more experienced. And actually what you find is that two things really. One is when you get in the room, everybody's coming with a variety of different experiences. So whatever your experience level, even if you've just got an interest in producing and you've maybe never even tried it, there'll be somebody else there that is in the same situation. If you're somebody who has just thought about producing but is not quite sure, there's going to be somebody else there that was in the same situation. And I think what you'll find as you get through the program is that actually you've probably got a lot more experience than you think you have. And the program, that's where the program gives you confidence, and it also extends that experience and builds on whatever level you're at, wherever you've come from. It will build on what you've already got, and it's become, in that way, it becomes a process of discovery almost. It's not just sort of, oh, we're just going to go through a whole lot of information. It's also bringing out from you what you already have within you, and that's what's really exciting. So as Louisa said, go for it.
I would say, if you are, absolutely go for it, always go for it. But if you are someone who is also new to the Southwest, the course is such an amazing way to make those, not even connections, to make those friendships. So I moved down here on New Year's Eve 2020, and my dad said the only way he would support me moving here was if I applied for the course. So I'm very glad I did. Annoyingly, he was right. It was fantastic. I think I was just quite nervous about the idea of doing it. But now I feel so connected to artists and producers and theatre companies all throughout the region because I've done this course, and the idea of this finishing and me going forward to kind of find that next role or that next job, I feel like I am able to do that because of the skills that I've been taught, the people that I've met, and the conversations that we've had. I feel like I can take that on.
Yeah, we'll come on to that with our final question. But yeah, I would just be reiterating what everybody has already said. I think if there is anybody that has any interest, whether it be in the producers program or the artists program, just do it. As everybody's already said, because whether it be for experience or whether it be for learning new things or reiterating old things that you already knew, or just meeting people in theatre in the Southwest, it's fantastic for all of those things. And that's down to the wonderful people that take part, the wonderful people in the theatre industry in the Southwest, but also people like Helen running the program, and all the support that they give. It's definitely one of the best things that I have done in a long time. So I would thoroughly recommend. Which brings us on to our last question, which is from Elle in chat, who says, you've graduated from Northcote Future's producers program. So what next? Any plans or projects in the pipeline? So this is an opportunity for everybody to do a little shout out, plug your social medias and say what you're up to or any plans you have for the future. Who would like to go first? Don't all rush at once.
Yeah, I don't mind going first again.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I haven't got too many concrete plans in place at the moment, but I've got a lot of things I'm working on. So one thing is the Exeter Fringe Festival have their applications open for shows at the moment, and they've also got a couple of jobs that they're going for as well. So one thing I want to do is I like to kind of pitch a comedy show for that. Still planning that, still, working out how I want to do it and stuff like that. But yeah, that's something I'll probably be working on. And yeah, I've also been trying to develop more of a brand presence for the show I did last year, for the comedy show I did last year. So the name of it was the Southwest Comedy Showcase. And I've got a website for it, which is southwestcomedyshowcase.com. And yeah, it's a work in progress, but yeah, if you want to have a look for it, then go ahead. It's fine. And and another thing that I'm going to be doing in the future is I'll be starting a master's in events management in London in September, which is exciting. And yeah, I'd really like to and I think it'll be really good to build on the stuff I've already done with this program and everything. So yeah, those are the big things that I'm doing. But yeah,
it's so exciting, Louisa. My next project, well, I work in a school and I've just got to the end of term, so my next project is going to be lying down for a very long time. And then after that, I'm actually working with Sarah. We are doing some work with the Northcote. They are putting together a community festival as part of their ongoing work that they do with the community in Newcourt, and Sarah and I are going to do some work on that with them, which we met for the first time yesterday, and I am so excited about it. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Matt, how about you? What are you going to be doing?
Yeah, so I am currently working with the Northcote as well as part of their Kickstart company. So I'm working currently as an assistant director on a project for an outdoor performance coming up in August. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Other than that, no current solid plans, but one of my areas of interest is immersive theatre and the idea of audiences having agency within a performance world, which is something I've done a little bit in the past throughout my study and other elements. So that's something that I might be starting up again soon. You can find me on Twitter at @MattFarley_EX for updates on anything that may or may not be happening with me. But yeah, please keep your eyes peeled.
Brilliant, Matt. All exciting projects. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working with Grace. And at the moment, I'm also working with Plymouth Theatre Royal as an evaluator for two wonderful projects, Our Space and Co-Creating Change, which are really exciting community projects. Restless Theatre, you can check out, you've probably, if you've been joining us this week, seen a couple of our Restless Thoughts on, which has been a lockdown project. So you can check out our Restless Thoughts on videos on YouTube or at our website, www.restlesstheatre.com. I'm at the moment putting together an Arts Council application for an exciting project that hopefully is going to take place next year. And we've got a couple of shows in development, so watch this space. And personally, this course has come at a really interesting point in my life, and I'm starting to explore going out and looking for more freelance producing opportunities, and so I'm really excited about starting my freelance producer career now, and that's where I'm going. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you for joining me this evening. It's been a wonderful discussion, and I hope that those of you that were listening, have enjoyed it. If you want to know more about the Futures programme, do please keep checking the Northcote Theatre's website for details of the next one and get involved, yes? It's been a fabulous week. And before we go, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who has participated in making this festival so special. Everyone on the artists and the producers programme, all the staff at the Northcote, the visiting artists that have worked with us, and a special shout out to Helen Bovey, who organised it all and has supported us all so much throughout the whole process. And of course, a huge thank you to our wonderful audiences who've joined us from places all over the map throughout the week to celebrate the variety of creative work that is made in, around, and most importantly, because of this very special place on the map. Thank you very much. Good night.